said that Stark Vegas, especially at 11 a.m., is where teams go to die. This is an 11 a.m. kick on ESPN. The 14th ranked LSU Tigers are 10-point favorites down in Cowbell Nation. Tell me why LSU should be concerned, if not on upset alert, for this game.
Yeah, I don't have any statistic. I don't have any numbers. I don't have any data to back up my take, but just doesn't it feel like at least once or twice a year we get an 11 a.m. kick in Starkville, Mississippi? The road team, maybe the higher ranked team, is just not awake yet, and the cowbells are clanging, and Mississippi State comes out hot and firing, and maybe doesn't pull the upset, but definitely makes things interesting. It just feels like that happens once or twice every year. Feels like it's happened to LSU before too, and so after what we saw from LSU in the second half of that Florida State game, I know that they blew out, I think it was Grambling last week. And I know that they exercised a lot of demons, hopefully, on the offensive side of the ball. But after what we saw in the second half of that Florida State game, there's just a ton of question marks for LSU for me. We saw it all offseason with what Brian Kelly was saying. We saw that he was not confident. We were concerned that he wasn't going to use his best playmaker on the defensive side of the ball. And that came to fruition with Harold Perkins not rushing the passer and trying to play more of a coverage linebacker against Florida State. We saw how that worked out for him. I don't know. Mississippi State still isn't their complete best version of themselves on the offensive side of the ball yet. They're still trying to break in that new scheme, moving away from the air raid to more of a nuanced scheme, more balanced scheme. But I just think that they are able to keep it close at home. Call me, whatever you want. This feels like one of those games on a sleepy week that we're looking up in the fourth quarter and saying, oh, LSU is in deep trouble, right? Garrett, you said it off the top that this is one that you could be looking at your screen on an otherwise sleepy Saturday and say, oh, LSU might be eliminating themselves from playoff contention right now in Starkville, Mississippi. So I think Mississippi State, especially at home, is going to play this one tough. This is a big, big rivalry game for them. Definitely means more to Mississippi State than it does to LSU. LSU has bigger aspirations than beating Mississippi State. But Mississippi State really wants to beat LSU. So I think they keep it within 10. LSU might sneak it out late, but Mississippi State, I think, is definitely keeping it within 10 points in this one.
Yeah, Trey, I think you got a point about it, being a sleepy game and maybe Mississippi State sneaking them up on them. And look, I love Will Rogers as much as the next guy. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. I think he's going to have a great pro career. I think he's a great quarterback. But the only difference I'm going to take on that is I think LSU has to be keyed in, and they're going to be. I think realizing that after their week one loss, which was not particularly convincing, right? It's not like you can, lose another game but say, oh, but we played the Seminoles close. You got smoked, right? you got blown out the water. They got to kind of lick their wounds a little bit, and they have to be basically perfect the rest of the way if they want a chance at a playoff, right? They can go win their conference with, a one loss in the SEC West division, but 2 losses ain't going to get you in, not this year especially, right? There's so many good teams across this country, and I think we're expecting a lot of big things across the board from people. So I think LSU has to be keyed in, and I think they have to start strong, and I think that they will. Looking at, kind of Jaden Daniels, I went and pulled up his game logs. Terrible game against Florida State with 59% completions. He did have the over 300 yards, but the touchdown, the interception just wasn't effective enough to really keep that team in the game. Bounces back, obviously, Grambling State, but 75% completions, 269, 5 touchdowns, only missed 6 throws in that game. I'm pretty pleased with the bounce back. I think he's going to get back on track. I think you're going to see another strong performance from Jaden Daniels, and I think that we're going to go ahead and watch LSU kind of roll this one out. I do think it'll be close for about a half. I think for about a half, it'll be competitive, and then LSU goes in the locker room, makes their adjustments, and then takes care of business against the Bulldogs.
I'm somewhere in the middle of both of those takes because I'm going to take the Tigers minus the number here. I went back over the last 12, 13 years, and Trey, initially I was kind of on that bandwagon too, right? That, how does LSU play, especially on the road in the morning? Historically, Stark Vegas has not necessarily been a place where they've tripped up, even where they've played remarkably close games. Now, of course, there are going to be those 1 and 2 point wins sprinkled into any series. But I do find myself thinking, okay, LSU does need to show up ready to win this game, right? They absolutely do need to come out and fire from the word go. I do think this is going to be a close game late, but I think it's of the 7-point nature with an LSU touchdown at the end, taking them over that number. So I'm not saying that LSU blows Mississippi State out of the water, but I do think they are the much better team. They have the better athletes. If it's historically not a weird place for them to play in the morning, obviously each team is different, but maybe that Starkville magic doesn't necessarily apply at 11 a.m. to the LSU Tigers. So I'm going to go with the better team. It's a big number. This is another one of those lines that I referenced earlier where it's like, I'd rather just not bet this game than fall off on the wrong side. But give me LSU minus the 10. I think Mississippi State's just working in too many new elements, right, to the offense. They're obviously a defensive first team. They were blowing Arizona out early, and then they let the Wildcats back into that game. So the defense isn't even as uptight, I think, at home is what we've become accustomed to. Give me the Tigers and the better athletes here on this.
And to clarify real quick, maybe not necessarily for LSU, it's a tricky place to play, but just in general, right?
Yes.
Like top teams come in there and sometimes really struggle. But LSU, to your point, has fared really well there over the years.
Other than all the games that they had to give back because of the NCAA ruling, that was one of the most bizarre trips down memory lane. All these LSU teams that are 0-3 in their official records, and just the message over and over again, revoked due to a 2003 or 2023 NCAA decision over and over and over again.
And it was only 28-25 the last time they went to Starkville in 2021. So
true. That's true. It was. There are some close games there. I can hear Mississippi State fans yelling through the radio. Remember the game that we blew them out in 2020, right? I hear you.
They were garbage in 2020 though. LSU was terrible.
They might be garbage this year. We'll see.
Gracious, how about